Hello and welcome to one of the most anticipated races of the year. That's right, it's Tokyo Expressway for round number 5 of Season 9 here in the GT7 League. This race and this track needs no introduction to a Gavra race. It's been, experienced many times in the past. So we are not going to waste any time in going through how our grid lines up for today's race as we go under the Tokyo banner to cross the starting line to meet our driver on pole position. And it's a different looking Mercedes, but the same driver, Playduchy, starts on pole position after starting at the back of the grid last time out at Lago Maggiore with a different style on his Mercedes. Behind him is Tiger Assassin joining him on the front row of the grid, and the silver and lime green McLaren. In third place, we've got a different looking McLaren in the name of our Season 1 and 6 Drivers' Champion Toussaint. The number 27 starts third on the second row of the grid alongside Bonneville 99, who won the race 2 weeks ago in Daytona. Behind him in fifth place is Piero. The Frenchman commonly starts towards the front of the pack and continues to make another top 5 start in the red, white and black McLaren. And on the third row of the grid, just behind him, is myself in the purple and green BMW M6 with a new addition on top, the Japanese flag-ish, denoted by a small little red circle, which I don't think anyone noticed during the race, but was a nice touch nevertheless. Behind him is Littmanen or Fortmans in 7th place in the white and orange, very good looking McLaren 650S, and just behind him is our flying Finn Natim Grin in the Subaru, who might struggle in tonight's race, but we'll have to wait and see how the Subaru fares around the streets of Tokyo. Just behind him is Cameron Kaboom in the Mercedes AMG, starting in... what position are we on? 9th? Had to see how many drivers were left at the back. The Brit starts in 9th place alongside the Scout Dan, who returns after missing the last 3 races in his all-black McLaren. And at the back of the pack is Ted MC, who makes his second race of the season in the red and black Mazda Vision GT. There's a sight of the competitors on tonight's grid with the pit lane entrance on the left-hand side. It should be a very entertaining race, this one. I mean, the start-finish straight, you're on it for about 40% of the lap. Maybe, I meant to say 40 seconds, not 40%. 40 seconds of a 2-minute lap. And you're full throttle, probably 80% round this track. So without further ado, let's get the Tokyo Expressway Grand Prix underway. We're not going to have any 5 red lights tonight, but this track needs no introduction. 25 laps, and we go racing here in Japan for the Tokyo Expressway Grand Prix. Playduchy gets a good start from pole position, leads the field away in the long run down towards the first corner. Ahead of Tiger Assassin, Bonnie, Toussaint, myself in 5th, and it's going to be a sight you're going to often see throughout the course of this 9th race here in Japan. A single file train down in towards the first corner, but Tiger's going for it on Playduchy to the inside. Bonneville following him there 2 by 2 like Noah's Ark, but Bonnie hits the side of Toussaint, who sends Dutchy into a spin, points him in the right direction, but cars are everywhere. Natty slips through on the inside. Dan swoops it around the outside and up into 4th place. Piero in the background going side by side with Cameron Kaboom. Fortman's making it 3 wide between the Dutch and the Frenchman, who nearly hits the wall on the inside as the track tightens. Dan looking for a move on Natty. I think that's Tim on Toussaint. I'm going the wrong way through the grid. But what a great start from Dan, who's all the way up into 4th place after starting in 10th. 6 positions gained after 4 corners. And the Brit finding, oh, but he's hit the wall on the outside. That could leave him vulnerable. Toussaint's going to go through on the left-hand side of the screen, right-hand side of the track. Tim's going to follow him through. Down though, he's gone a bit deep into the corner, and Dutchy's now being forced into the wall. You can't see that because of the way the track bends round. But I think Dutchy might have damage from that. Indeed, he does. Front bumper damage. Fortmans and Pierre are going side by side. The Dutchman trying to follow his fellow Dutch companion through. But look how much time that these drivers have lost. That's Dan in the wall. He's got damage. Ted's going to try and go through the open door on the inside. Pierre has dropped down to 10th place after starting in 5th, taking a long route round the outside to get a better exit. But look how much time these drivers have had battling on the opening lap, getting caught up in accidents and probably, you could say, pushing too hard on the opening lap and making very early mistakes that's not only cost one driver but quite a few. Meanwhile, at the head of the train, meanwhile at the front of the pack, Tiger Assassin and Bon Evil, as the pole sitter is down to 6th place and quite a way off the lead of this race so far. I think that's the Mazda going side by side with the McLaren. Fortmans is going for it on the inside of the current championship leader, who does the old up and under and cuts back on the fellow Dutchman. Pierre is up to 9th. Ted's dropped down to 11th as Cameron Kaboom has also dropped down to 10th place off the start. Not many drivers have kept their qualifying position at the end of the opening lap. Indeed, I think Toussaint might be the only one who has achieved that statistic. But this race isn't about setting the fastest lap. Well, it is, but it's about being smart with where you battle and how you battle, if you battle. Saving fuel is going to be a crucial element to winning this race or promoting yourself further up the pack. Dutchy's got a bit of a gap to Fortmans. Pierre now up into 8th place as Dan's dropped to 9th, and he's got further damage. He's now down to 10th place as Cameron Kaboom goes down the inside, and Ted going down the inside for the right-hander down at turn 11. We've got a mix of strategies here tonight. A lot of drivers starting on this red striped soft compound tyres. We've got Fortmans, Cameron Kaboom, Ted on the yellow striped medium. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out for them. As Tiger starts lap 3 in the lead of the race, working with Bon Evil, Natty, Zah, Toussaint and Tim in 3rd, 4th and 5th. Also working together. You can see the bump drafting in effect. Tim bumping Toussaint into the back of myself to gain extra speed down the start-finish straight, going towards the first corner. Cameraman's got a bit lost there. Drivers making their way through the first corner. That's a BMW going very wide. The brakes illuminating under the night sky. Natty goes from 3rd to 5th, but going wheel to wheel with Tim. But the Subaru has the better drive on the exit of the corner to move his way up into 4th place. Maybe that was strategical from the BMW driver, not wanting to be the driver to hunt down the top 2 so he can sit behind Tim and save some fuel. Toussaint is now the leading driver in that pack. Pierre has worked his way up into 7th place and is on the back of that Mercedes, so I'd imagine those two would begin to work together. Fortman's at the head of this train. Cameron Kaboom brushing the wall on the outside of the fast left-hander. And has left himself vulnerable. He's going side by side with the Scout Dan, who's moved himself up into 9th place. The Mercedes driver defenceless through sector 4. Are we going to see Ted going for a move on the inside of the final 2 corners? I don't think we are. Not on this lap anyway. This track confined of 13 corners. But a long gap between the first and the last one. Or the last and the first, I should say. But the pack is slowly being brought back together with Tiger leading Bonnie, Toussaint leading Tim, and Natty behind. interestingly, Natty's losing time down the start-finish straight. That's just how much the slipstream is worth. We might see a change of position for the leader of the race. Actually, Bon Evil's pulled over to the inside, goes for a move on the inside of the McLaren driver, down towards the first corner, leaves the door wide open for Tiger to cut back on the inside. They go side by side on the exit of the corner, but Bon Evil with the drive gets the move done. In the background, we can see moves being made 2 by 2 once again. Fortman's on the outside, being overtaken by Cameron Kaboom. Opens the door up for the Scout down to try and follow him through. The two McLarens going side by side up the hill through the kink of turn 2. In the run up towards turn 3, this is a beautiful camera shot of the two cars making their way up in towards turn 3, wheel to wheel. And it's Dan who moves up into 9th place after starting in 10th. I almost don't want to go away from that battle, but we cut up to the front of the field where Toussaint hits the outside barrier, lucky not to get any damage from that. You can see on the minimap how close the pack are together at the back, in the middle and at the front. We've got 3 different packs forming in this race. And some drivers may be left a bit vulnerable. It's so early on for big gaps to have been formed, and we've got quick drivers like Cameron Kaboom, Fortman's as well towards the back of the pack. No disrespect to Dan or Ted, but 2 drivers who are often inside the top 7, close inside of the top 7, now find themselves quite a way off the race leader, which is now Bon Evil 99. He takes the lead of the race, ending lap 4 onto 5. He made the move down towards turn 1, and these cars under the night sky do look absolutely beautiful. You can see we're not quite at midnight just yet. The time of day is set to twilight, but it will get darker as the race goes on. We will finish under a night. Nice dark sky. Bon Evil's left the door wide open for Tiger to go through on the inside, taking a wider approach to the first corner, but it means he does get a better exit off of turn 1. And some mind games in effect, lifting off, going up the hill. Let's Tiger go through and take the lead of the race. For any Formula E fans in the chat, if you remember Berlin from last season, no one wanted to lead that race because of how powerful the slipstream was. At a track as technical as Berlin, nowhere near as a similar track to Tokyo Expressway. No one wanted to lead that race, and it just caused drama and so much action in that race, and that's what we're going to see here tonight. Not many drivers are going to be wanting to lead this race. What's happened to ex-Natty G, who's had a poor lap? He's dropped off the back of the top 4, but these guys slowing each other as well. Oh, a slide from Bon Evil through the penultimate corner. Keeps the car going in a straight line. But if you're someone like Natty, Darci or Piero, it's not quite over yet, because these guys are going to be going flat out whilst working together and saving fuel. At the front, however, they're going to be going flat out, saving fuel, but not wanting to lead the race. We might see a couple of classic F1 DRS chickens, lifting off before the braking zone, going wide at the hairpin at turn 1 perhaps, to just open the door for the driver behind to go for that inviting move. We'll have to wait and see how this race unfolds, but it's looking like the likely winner is going to be someone out of the top 5, but it's not over yet. I think Dan's just taken the position of Cameron Kaboom. I saw Cameron in the chat saying he was about 10-15 seconds behind at this stage already. You can already see the top 5 going through on the right hand side of the circuit, which is where the first corner runs parallel to. You can see it on the minimap in the bottom right hand corner. These are the streets of Tokyo, the expressway, you might even say, going up the hill over the, I don't know what this is called, an overpass perhaps, over the start-finish straight. The last time we went to Tokyo, it was Toussaint who picked up victory. The top three were Toussaint, Bon Evil and Tim from Season 7. The gap between the three of them was about 100th from third to first. What a photo finish that was. If you haven't seen it, go check it out, but I have just spoilt the result. And before that, Season 5 in the Alpine VGT was the second last time we'd visited a Tokyo. No, that's a lie, actually. We went to Tokyo East clockwise. So this track, but going in the correct direction, or not the reverse way, you could say. Where turn 1 becomes the final corner, and the first corner is a 90-degree right-hander, which made for some entertaining racing in the Group 2 car class. There are only two versions of Tokyo we haven't been to, three versions, sorry, of Tokyo we haven't been to, and two of them are the central loops. Quite understandable, I guess, why we haven't been to those two circuits. But the south clockwise circuit we haven't yet been to, and it's a consideration for Season 10. Cameron Kaboom in the chat saying he prefers going anti-clockwise for driving but clockwise for overtaking with a different turn 1. And I think whichever version of Tokyo you do, you're bound to get great overtaking, great racing. Yes, some are perhaps better for driving, better for racing. Some are better in Group 2, better in Group 4. Pick your car class, whatever it might be. But it's a simple track, but a driver's favourite, I imagine. It's a fun little race. It's one that everyone wants to win. It's almost like Le Mans. Anyone can win it. And that is the beauty of this track. You don't have to be the fastest driver to win this race. I forgot to mention it in qualifying, but this was probably... It's probably the track where, in a time trial, we will have the smallest margin. It's not a very technical track. There's about 4 braking zones, 2 of them hairpins. So you'd think the gap would be close, like Austria and Monza. But in fact, I think the field was separated by about 3 seconds in qualifying, just based on who got slipstream, who got the best slipstream and bump drafting effect down the start-finish straight. Not everyone got it, and hence the big gaps opened up. No gaps though between any driver inside the top 5 as they make their way down towards turn 1. As they look at this, Bon Evil on the inside. Natty's going for it on the inside of Tim, trying to progress his way through the order. Tim goes quite wide through the first corner, lets that BMW go through. Does get a good exit though. Would he challenge going in towards the kink of turn 2 and 3? Officially, this track has 13 corners, but I can't quite calculate where those 13 corners are. I'm counting 1 for the hairpin, 2 for the kink, 3 for the right-hander. They're just going through turn 4 now. I don't know if this little kink's classed as a corner. I'm not. I would count this right-hander as 5, the left of 6. This is probably not what you guys find entertaining, or maybe that's 7 into 8. And then this right would be 9, the left would be 10, the right would be 11, and then the final 2 corners are 12 and 13. I don't know. Just thinking at the start, how many... Where are like the corners noted in the middle sector? Because apparently there's 13 of them. Anyway, let's not get bogged down over where the corners are. Contact as Tim hits the back of the BMW going through the penultimate corner, but no one's got any damage. No one's in the barrier. No one is upset, I imagine. Must be a nightmare to cop. Yeah, there are some tracks where I just question why it's not a corner. Oh, here we go. Bon Evil's going for it on the outside, on the right-hand side. A Tiger Assassin, I should say. Tucks back into the slipstream to start lap number 9. But here we go. The pack is changing. We've got 2 lines forming. Which one do you choose? Bonnie leading Natty, Tiger leading Toussaint. Look how quickly the lead of the race can change. Bolly takes the lead from Natty in second, now Tim in third. Tiger's gone from first to fourth, and we haven't even got to the braking zone of turn one. Two Saints dropped down to fifth, and look who's joining the pack. Dutchy and Piero. Tiger going for a move on the inside of Tim, but backing out. The Finnish driver, those left the door open on the inside for Tiger to slip through. Natty's challenging for the lead of the race here on lap number 9. But the two Brits exits turn one single file when Tiger makes his way up into third place and ahead of Tim. His teammate Two Saint trying to follow him through on the inside of turn 3. But the purple and black McLaren will have to sit behind the pink and black Subaru for another lap unless he wants to find his way through during the middle sector. Tim's going to go for it on the outside, perhaps in towards turn 6, but not on this occasion. Two Saints hit the wall though on the outside pretty heavily, but he's gotten away with no damage. I think that might have been a contact with the door, pretty much like he did there, so lucky to get away with no damage. Meanwhile behind, Cameron Kaboom still leads the train of Dan, Fortmans and Ted in the battle for 8th place. So it looks like unfortunately for them, that's the highest position they could finish. Look at this though, Dan with more damage as he gets overtaken rather easily by Ted. I thought that move was a little bit too easy for Ted, but Dan, I think that's the 4th time he's got damage in this race. Whether he was aided in that in receiving that damage, I'm not too sure. I didn't quite see. It's got drivers pulling over to the left-hand side of the circuit. Drivers are into the pits here on lap 9. Look how everyone floods into the pits. Speaking of flooding, I believe rain is on the way. You can't quite see it on your screen, and Tiger Assassin stationary in the pits. There are no tyres going onto that car, nor is the fuel. What's going on in the pit lane? Cameron Kaboom is coming through on the right hand side of the circuit. Dutchy takes the lead of the race, and there it is. The rain hitting the streets of Tokyo. Cameron stayed out. Piero Two Saint on the intermediate tyres. I imagine everyone will be going for the inters. It's not going to rain enough for the full wets, I imagine. But for the viewers watching who know how hard we've tried to make it rain in a race, it has finally rained on dynamic weather. I think it's the first time it's done that in a league race where I've not set it to rain. Unbelievable scenes. You should have heard what the drivers are saying as we found out it was going to rain during the race. But crucially, look at this, Natty in 6th place, easily getting past Bon Evil, who's on the soft compound tyre. Two Saint slips through on the inside of Cameron Kaboom, who stayed out on his mediums. Now going to get overtaken perhaps by Ben, who's hit the back of the Mercedes. Sends Cameron into the wall. I think we should have another look at that, because we are on the replay feature, and we do like crashes. Well, we don't like crashes, but they're quite fun to watch. Well, this was two different drivers having very different feelings about the wet conditions. Bonnie obviously a lot more confident than Cameron Kaboom, but uses the side of the Mercedes to stop him from going into the wall. Now, nothing Cameron Kaboom could do there, and he's only got his left-hand side tyres that aren't damaged after that contact. We've got a car around in the background. It's Cameron Kaboom. Drivers behind need to be careful of the yellow flags, because there is a slow Mercedes in the middle of a street track. Another car around in the background, and it's Fortmans who's on the soft compound tyres as well. It's clear the soft tyres aren't working in this wet weather conditions. As Dutchy starts lap 11 in the lead, he's got away from the chaos. He's not putting any fuel in the pit stop. But it's interesting that Body's gone for the soft, Tiger also the soft, and he's come out quite far behind the top 7. So unfortunate for Cameron Kaboom, who's staying out for another lap on those mediums, interestingly. He's got down behind them on the inters. Now, it has already stopped raining. It's hard to tell if it's in the tunnel, but it has stopped raining, so the track will begin to dry up. We've got 11 drivers on the circuit drying it up. It is a street circuit, though, so it might take a little bit of time to dry. Dan's got ahead of Cameron Kaboom. There are yellow flags. Oh, and it's Tiger Assassin. Tiger's gone off down at turn 1, straight off into the barrier. No chance of stopping that car on a set of soft compound tyres and a heavy braking zone doing 180 odd miles an hour. And, well, spoiler alert for all the viewers in the chat. Might as well. I was going to say for the end of the race, but we might as well. Tiger Assassin, ladies and gentlemen, is on the soft compound tyres. Did pit with everyone else, but didn't purchase the intermediate or wet tyres prior to this race. Hence, the lack of wet weather tyres on that McLaren. Which is why we saw him stationary in the pit lane for so long, is because he was trying to select the inters, couldn't because he hadn't bought them. So let that be a lesson. Make sure you buy the correct tyres. It famously last happened to Ted at the Nürburgring for our first mini-season event, actually the first race on GT7, and he forgot to buy wet tyres and it rained. Because I made it rain. Ooh, Dutchy's into the pits. That's interesting. Race leader, championship leader, into the pits, off of the inters, after only doing 2 laps on that tyre. Now, I guess I was going to say he's got nothing to lose, but it's Tokyo Expressway. There's everything to lose from the lead of the race, and the fuel goes into the back of that Mercedes. So Toussaint takes the net lead of this race then. Or maybe it's not the net lead of the race. We'll have to wait and see how Dutchy fares to being on his own. Dan also into the pits. There's a cone on the middle of the track down at turn 2. Oh yeah, that's turn 2. And then this is turn 3. Oh, okay, yeah, that makes so much sense. Cameron in the chat saying he thinks it was faster to stay on the dry tyre than to pit for the inters. We'll wait and see how that fares out. We do have some drivers. We've got Bonnie and Tiger, as well as yourself, Cameron Kaboom, who have stayed out on these slicks. Tiger's pit stop was a lot longer than everyone else because he didn't select either the soft tyre or didn't pit. We're nearly halfway through this race. Lap 12 of 25, and to look at this, Tim going for a move around the outside of Piero, becomes the inside for turn 11. And Tim moves up into a podium position, gets ahead of Piero, and makes his way through the field. Cameron's saying the mistake he made was not pitting for softs. Let's go to the end. And the thing is about Tokyo, the tyre wear is very low, probably the lowest track on the, well, definitely the lowest tyre wear track on the calendar. One of the worst tyre tracks, best tyre. What am I trying to say? It's one of the best tracks for tyre wear on the calendar and in the game, not including the ovals. The top 4 though are into the pits to get off of the intermediate tyres as the track begins to dry. Bonnie will continuing on the soft compound tyre. And look at this, Dutchy goes through past Toussaint, past Natty, who's jumped the McLaren in the pits. Tim's come out ahead of all of them in second place, but drops down to third as Dutchy retakes the lead of the race, and they're back to where they formerly were. Can they slow it down in time for the first corner? Look at that, the dry line forming down at turn 1, and this is where it becomes tricky because it's a night race under the floodlights of Tokyo on a drying circuit, so it's going to be even more tricky. to spot the wet patches of the track. We really have to try and stick to the racing line, and Natty's drifting on the wet stuff. He's in the barrier at turn 4, and that's damage to the front left suspension and the front bumper. We might see Toussaint go through or actually work with the BMW to try and catch back up to the top 3. Natty's going to be slow for the next 25 odd seconds now with that damage. It takes 30 seconds to repair. The benefit of Tokyo being a street circuit is you have the barriers to bounce you back in the right direction, or if you do dip a wheel onto the wet stuff, you're not drifting wide into gravel or grass. But that comes at a cost of damage instead. Look at the gap that the front 3 now have to Natty and Toussaint in 4th and 5th. They should be fueled to go to the end. Looks like Natty's putting more fuel than anyone. Cameron Grabboon with no fuel, yet to make a pit stop, I believe. That 2:33 was when the rain came. Dan and Fortmans are still very close to each other out on the circuit. This isn't your typical Tokyo Expressway race. You know, there are either 3 ways to of how a Tokyo race pans out, and I'll go through all 3 of them and tell you which one we've got. We've got the first one where the whole pack pretty much will stay together, or at least 50% of the pack will stay together from lap 1 to from lights out to checkered flag. They'll be overtaking left, right and centre down at turn 1. There'll be 2 trains down the start-finish straight as the drivers have a little bit of fun, racing and overtaking, as Tiger gets ahead of Cameron up into 7th place. The other variant of that race is where the packs stay together, but in a single file train, saving fuel to have a shorter pit stop, and obviously then try and make up time for the second half of the race, which is what we saw, which is what I done in season 7, where I went from 7th to 1st in the pit stops, and then went from 1st to 7th rather quickly, as I don't think the drivers appreciated the strategic genius behind that call. And that's sort of what we had at the start of the race, and in these mini packs of you could say is what we have. We've got Natty and Zaha, Toussaint, Tiger and Cameron, and Dutchy and Tim. And then we have this one where we've had rain in the middle of it, which has completely shaken up the order of the grid. Drivers are absolutely everywhere. We've got Tiger and Cameron and myself and Toussaint, Dutchy and Tim, Bonnie in the lead. Dan and Fortman still together, and Ted in 11th place. Running a lonely race, but is still running. And that's the race we have now. We've had a rain-induced race, which has rather changed the expectations of this race. It doesn't mean it's going to be boring, because trust me, I don't think this race will be boring till the checkered flag, because we've still got individual battles, which are sometimes maybe better than pack racing, because pack racing you might only have one driver overtake from 2nd to 1st, as the driver in the lead obviously has no slipstream, but individual racing, if we had deltas, just as nice. In the background, Dan defending from Lippmann, and the 2 McLarens battling down and towards the first corner. 15 times they ventured through that hairpin, but from each lap since lap 9, it's going to be slightly different as the track continues to dry up. It's not fully dry just yet. Toussaint in 4th place has got ahead of the BMW. And 2 very good looking liveries under the floodlights and the night sky. Well, all these liveries look really nice, it has to be said. But there are just some certain liveries that stand out at a night race, such as Tokyo, and we had the second half of Daytona finish under the floodlights. Dan's got more damage once again as he picked that up through this corner once again. Oh, let's keep an eye on the grip meter. Does it go beyond the first bar? No, he just hits the wall on the inside. Fortman's had the momentum to go through, but he chose to go for the right-hand side. I think Dan was going over to the right-hand side of the track to try and, let Fortman's go through on the racing line, but Fortman's, being a driver, wants to go for the overtake and kind of just got bogged down and stuck behind, but not into the final corner. Tried walking through a closing door, but escapes with no damage. But Dutchy and Tim fighting for the lead of this race as Bonnie pits onto the medium compound tyres, drops behind Piero in 5th. Tim can't go for a move on Dutchy. Can Natty go for one on Toussaint? You bet he can, on the inside. Toussaint dipping a wheel on the wet part of the circuit, or just simply outbraking himself down towards turn 1. And once you dip a wheel onto the wet part of the circuit, it's not easy to recover. But I think the outside of turn 1 is slowly but surely drying, but still quite damp. Hello and welcome those to everyone who is tuning into this race, Tokyo Expressway, east counterclockwise, round number 5 of season 9. We only have 4 races to go after this one. We head to Europe once again for the Circuit de la Sarthe, also known as Le Mans. Before we head to Barcelona, Brands Hatch, and then the season finale at Interlagos. And the championship is looking like it's leaning towards the favour of the Dutchman, who is leading this race. Toussaint slingshotting past the BMW down the start-finish straight, and now moves up into a podium position. Will Natty return the favour, or just give a little bit of a bump to the back of that McLaren? Just for the bumping technique. So they go down towards turn 1. Tim not going to go for a move. Toussaint's outbrakes himself. Maybe he's seen an attractive woman on the outside, or I don't know, but he's definitely preferring the wide approach to the first corner, but he's crucially nearly out of the slipstream range to Natty in 3rd place. He can't afford to let that BMW see off into the distance. Some might say it's hammer time for both drivers, for Natty to try and pull out of the slipstream, for Toussaint to get back in it. Let's just continue to ride on board with the McLaren driver through this middle sector. You can see the commitment, 150 miles per hour through this technical section that's still quite damp. Now from the cockpit of the BMW, making their way through the streets of Tokyo. What a beautiful circuit it is under the night sky. So many beautiful cars out on track right now. Dutchy in the lead of the race, though, is still under pressure from the Flying Finn. He'll be trying to fly his way past and into a race-winning position. He's yet to finish inside the top 4, I believe, with his best result coming from Mount Panorama, or his best point score coming from Mount Panorama. The thing about this point system is you can outscore the driver in front of you in some positions if you put it on pole, with an addition to a fastest lap, currently held by the me in the M6. Tiger and Cameron Kaboom still running very close together in 7th and 8th place, continuing to work together. And it's a shame that at a track like Tokyo, it's really actually It's really difficult to close down a gap even if you're with someone, because whilst you two are working together, bump drafting, slipstreaming, there's other two drivers who are bump drafting and slipstreaming. It looks like Two Saints caught up to the back of Natty, so was probably just within the 8/10 1 second slipstream range. And now just to note to all the drivers that are watching, and also to the viewers, for a little bit of context, we struggled for drivers in Season 8 when we ran the Super Formula cars. And so for this season I increased the slipstream up to week once again for it to be an entertaining season for the drivers. I want it to be a fun experience for everyone on the grid, whether they're winning or battling for 10th place. With the slipstream on week, it will allow for the pack to stay closer for longer, drivers to go for overtakes they might not be able to make otherwise. You know, tracks like, what's a good example, maybe Brands Hatch. It's not a long run down to turn 1, but if you're close through the final corner with the weak slipstream, you might be able to go for it. So things like that, I want it to be fun for the drivers who, you know, so they can stick around for the whole season. However, if we, as we are slowly but surely rebuilding the GT7 league, then it's my aim to reduce the slipstream back down to weak for kind of more realistic. I don't know what I'm trying to, you know. I know some. Oh, that looks late. That looks very late from. No, it's fine. Never mind. That looked really late on the brakes from the BMW. I thought he was going straight on, but I slow it down in time. Cameron's into the pits off the mediums. Could potentially go for a faster lap attempt with it. But I think there are some drivers that prefer the weak slipstream, some that will prefer real. But the aim for this season was for it to be fun and enjoyable. And we've seen it in effect at tracks like Deep Forest and Daytona, Lago, now Tokyo. We've had 5 really good races this season. And if you're a driver and you are watching, if you know any other drivers who could be interested, a friend who plays GT7, please do invite them to join us. We still have spaces available this season for the final 4. If they're a fan of Lone, that was a slide through the final corner from me. Kind of feels really weird to say, but we're going to keep with it. And I feel like I keep spectating the same drivers every lap, but I'm not expecting any overtakes. So we will give other drivers the screen time they do deserve. They put effort into every race, I imagine. I think we might actually have a change for the lead of the race. 2 hours got very close together down at some stage during that back straight. Will Tim take the lead of the race here on lap 20? No, we won't. So we'll cut back down to someone like Cameron Kaboom, who is on the soft compound tyre. And because I don't think there are any moves happening on this lap, from my memory, we'll do a quali lap on board, because we don't have qualifying. Well, we do have qualifying, but we don't have qualifying for the streams, because it's the race replay. I'm on the track. I can't be commentating and driving at the same time. Well, I could be, but it'd be very boring because it's from my POV. So, yeah, and I feel like referring myself. Oh, there we go. Natty and Toussaint going side by side through the middle sector. Toussaint makes his way up into third place. Just as I said, there was no overtakes on this lap. We've got one. I'll keep with this battle. Apologies to Cameron Kaboom, because we were going to ride on board for a quali lap. But let's cut back to it. So going up the hill in towards turn 4, a little dab on the brakes. You can't actually see where the apex of the corner is because of the inside barrier, hence it being a street circuit. And, well, let's just hope this is a good lap. Well, not necessarily a good lap, but just a clean lap for Cameron Kaboom. Let's go in the cockpit just so we can see the commitment of the driver. Look at that, 152 miles per hour through the fast looping left-hander of turn 6. Looking out for those meter bulbs above the circuit. Little dab on the brakes, a downshift to 4th, up back to 5th. And it's flat out to the line. I see a change of position for the lead of the race, but it's not going to be a special overtake. It's down the start-finish rate. But we will cut back up to the top 2 as Cameron Kaboom makes his way through the final corner. They're actually going side by side, so whilst they are side by side, we're going to cut back up to the front 2, and as we do, they're single file once again. Dutchy takes the lead back from Tim with 5 laps to go. And Toussaint leading Natty through the first corner. Piero ahead of Bonneville in 6th and Tiger in 7th. Cameron ran in the final corner. Can he beat Toussaint's fastest lap of a 1:55.552? No is the answer to that. But even with fresh soft compound tyres and low fuel, it's not enough to beat a lap in slipstream. Which just goes to show how crucial a slipstream is. Cameron Kaboom is not a slow driver. Led many laps in Lago Maggiore and is fighting Dutchy for the win. Ended up finishing 2nd in that one with the fastest lap and started it on pole, so only scored 1 less point than the driver's the championship leader. Natty looks removed round the outside through turn 11, sorry, but isn't going to get much luck with that. So Natty running 5th in the standings, Toussaint in 2nd. There's 11 points between the two, but maybe a 10th between them on the circuit. Here goes Natty to the right-hand side of the circuit. They're going to go side by side down the start-finish straight in the run down towards turn 1, the 1.24 mile run down towards the first corner. And there are side by side, door to door, nothing to separate the two as they cross the line pretty much identically. But the BMW doesn't have the straight line speed advantage over that McLaren to make that move stick. Was that a bit of a test for Natty to learn how early or how late he has to pull out? Going for a move though in towards turn 1. That sounded very bad actually. Can we rewind? And then Natty up into 3rd place. Oh dear. Into a podium position. What I was trying to say was, yeah, that's going in the bloopers, Cameron. Yeah. What I was meant to say before I went for the move in towards the first corner was maybe it was a learning experience to see how early or late I have to move out of the slipstream in order to get past the McLaren before the line, preempting a photo finish. However, that sentence was cut short by the overtake in towards turn 1. That's nearly as bad of a slip-up as the Black Country Mush moment at Dragon Trail Seaside last season. And for those of you who know the Black Country Mush incident, knows what I'm on about. For those who don't, there's no need to repeat it. Yeah, that's your loss if you don't know the Black Country Mush incident. What is a loss though is Natty now being dropped down to 4th place after Toussaint goes for the move at the penultimate corner and back up into 3rd place. These two changing positions lap after lap. Piero not actually too far behind them as the race leaders start lap 23 of 25. I'm going to get sacked, aren't I? Tim now with the faster lap, 1:55.1, as he works with Play Dutchy to try and win this race. It's clear that the race win's going to be between either of those two, unless there is a crash. Toussaint and myself are in hot pursuit, but not making much progress. Piero not too far behind either. Tiger Assassino's caught up to the back of Bonneville, so we've got 2 packs of 2 drivers three packs of two drivers fighting for position. Cameron, Kaboom, Foreman's, Ted, and alone the 8th, 9th and 10th. Tigers got past. Born Evil through turn 1, but gets a snap of oversteer on the exit. Bonnie trying to find a way past. Opts for the right-hand side of the screen, left-hand side of the circuit as they make their way up the hill in towards turn 4. Can't find a way round the outside. Will tuck back in behind the McLaren. For now, Tiger up into 6th place on those soft compound tyres. Look at this, Natty and Toussaint side by side for the long swooping right-hander of turn 10. Up the hill they go with Toussaint on the inside, late on the brakes. Natty's going to try and hold it around the outside, but that door is always going to be slammed shut. Making their way through the final corner, you'd think Natty would have a good exit. Toussaint's weaving to try and break the toe, but it's not going to matter to be honest, because, well, as I've said many a time, it's a 1.2 mile long straight. Riding on board in the cockpit of the BMW, we're going to see a bump, and there it's a move over to the left hand side of the circuit, and this time does Natty G start lap 24 ahead of Toussaint? Yes, he does. So keep that in mind, viewers, for the end of the race between those two. We haven't actually seen much of the top two. We now know what Natty roughly needs to do if he wants to win or finish on the podium. He's left the door open for Toussaint to try and send one on the inside. Toussaint's going to try and poke his bumper in, but can't quite make anything of it. But as the race gets closer to coming to a close, and the lead of this race is yet to be undecided. We questioned how Tim would do here in the Subaru, a car that often is known for struggling for straight line speed performance, but it's had its fair share of... I don't know where that was going actually, but I don't actually know what I'm saying. I just speak. No logic behind it. But Tim has done very well, it has to be said, to get that Subaru where it is, and if he can go all the way as to win this race, that'd be unbelievable from him. The rain has certainly changed the outcome of this race and how it would have unfolded otherwise. Meanwhile, behind, they are side by side once again in towards the final corner. It's the third time that the two drivers behind are fighting for third place. Cameron Kaboom saying that the Subaru is bad in third and fourth, but actually has a decent top end speed, which is why it might be might be doing quite well here at Tokyo, where you are often in fifth and sixth gear for 90% of the lap. But we start at lap 25 of 25, the final 4.47 miles of Tokyo. You can see in the background Ted going up the hill. He's not going to be lapped in this race, but it could be close between the two cars behind. Look at this once again, side by side between the McLaren and the BMW. The battle for third place has been ignited. Natty darts it to the inside, late on the brakes. Can he complete this move? Toussaint's going to swoop it right round the outside. A little bit of contact from the BMW driver, who nearly loses the rear on the exit of the corner. Keeps the car going in a straight line. Behind them as well, Tiger and Born Evil still fighting for 6th place. Up front though, Tim's got a decent sized gap to Dutchy. What you don't want to do is be too close to the car in front through the final corner, otherwise you're just going to bump draft them to the line. You really want to be maybe 3-4 tenths behind so you can get the full effect of the slipstream and slingshot past your opponent. And Toussaint knows he needs to keep Natty close behind him, because that BMW doesn't have the top end speed over the McLaren to fly past. Now we will go back and watch each photo finish to the line. But rounding the final two corners for the final time, usually I'd say this is where someone's won the race, but I'm not going to say it just yet because it could still be either of these two. Have coped brilliantly in the first stint. They made their way through the rain. Tenducci completes a race victory from pole to the flag, or is Tim going to beat him to the line? He pulls over to the right-hand side of the screen, left-hand side of the track. He's already ahead of Ducci as they cross the line. A flying Finn wins in Tokyo, with Ducci in second place. Meanwhile, for third, Toussaint and Natty are still running head to toe. Look at this, Toussaint lifting off through the final corner. He has Natty exactly where he wants him, right behind him. Natty pulls over to the right hand side, but he's not gaining. He's not gaining. Little Natty can do if he wants to finish in third. A little lift off the throttle. Getting now slingshot past the McLaren. It's going to be very close between these two. Neck and neck, up to the line, door to door. And it's Toussaint who finishes in third place, and with Natty in fourth, separated by 6 thousandths over the line. Piero in a lonely fifth place, beating out Tiger Assassin in sixth, Bon Evil in seventh. Cameron Gaboon stayed out on those dry compound tyres when it rained, but then was involved in an accident with Bon Evil down at turn 7, sorry. Crosses the line in 8th. Fortman's rounding the final 2 corners in 9th place. We've got Ted in 10th with damage to the front of his car. And I think this is... what am I trying to find? And yeah, unfortunately for Cameron, his worst finish of the season, but did have a bit of a crash halfway through the race. Fortman's in 9th place, equals his record of only finishing in 9th. As Ted, I need to stop the race before we get back to the menu. Ted finishes in 10th. Cameron in the chat saying, him and having a skill issue, can you name a more iconic duo? I wouldn't call it a skill issue. Personally, I don't think it's a skill issue. Cameron clearly showed your pace last week in Laguna Maggiore. You were on pole, led many laps, nearly won that race. But you can't win them all, and we all have a dodgy race every once in a while. But going through the grid from back to front, as we usually do, Ted finished in 10th, Fortman's in 9th, Cameron in 8th, Bonnie in 7th, Tiger in 6th, Piero in 5th, myself in 4th, and your podium, Toussaint, Ducci and Tim. And now usually we get a photo of the race winner, but we'll get 2 photos today, because we had a photo finish at the end, which we often like to leave on. So we'll go about there for Tim. Congratulations to Tim, our flying Finn, who wins here in Tokyo. We're not going to get Dutch in the photo. He didn't win the race. There is your race winner for Season 9 of Round 5 here at Tokyo Expressway. If you did enjoy it, make sure to like and subscribe or follow, whether you're watching on Twitch or YouTube, either or. And yes, thank you to all the drivers. Oh, I didn't turn the glare off. Thank you to all the drivers, to all the viewers, and everyone who took part in this race in some way or another. Where are we racing next week? Le Mans, Circuit de la Sarthe. There is your race winner. So congrats to Tim. But I did capture a photo earlier of how close it was between myself and Toussaint. So we'll end on that because, you know, why not? Everyone loves a photo finish. Thank you so much for watching. I have been Natty G. Join us next week where we'll be racing at the Circuit de la Sarthe. And that's how close it was between the 2 drivers finishing on the podium. I better end this quick because we've got music playing in the background. Thank you everyone so much for watching. I've been Natty G. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.